What's up, Logo?
Hello.
What are you doing?
I'm going to an artist talk right now.
And are you going to go listen to artist talk?
I am, and I'm going to also talk too. I'm one of the artists.
Oh,
Aha! In your face.
In your face. And what are you going to talk about? What's
we're
the
gonna
theme?
talk. Basically, the theme of the show was Superwomen.
Yeah.
And we all had beautiful pictures, like paintings, like photography, all sorts of stuff. And we're going to talk about our pieces, and then we're going to talk about ourselves and our work and art and all sorts of things.
Very cool. You know, a lot of people call you Superwoman. I mean, that was Superwoman. What's that girl's name? Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. She's wonderful and she's a woman. That's the theme song.
It is. It is. I've heard it, actually.
And what are you going to talk about? Are you answering questions, or do you have something you're going to talk about specifically? Or
I'm going to answer questions.
what kind of questions?
Questions about myself, questions about my work, questions about, what inspires me, like those types of things.
Very cool.
I know, right?
I'm excited. Can we videotape it so everybody on YouTube can see it?
Okay, as long as you don't bootleg it afterwards. They got to pay full
Okay.
price.
All right,
No,
sounds
no.
good. All right, let's check it out. We're almost there.
You went out in the yard to find something to eat and clear your mind. Something bad inside me went away.
All right, here's the gallery. I think it's called 107 Bowers. Good, how are you?
Great.
Let's take a look at some of the art.
I'm glad you got some there. Yeah. That was like trying to figure out, I could probably create something.
Oh, hey. Hello.
Yeah, but still, I'm glad you got it.
See, I should have brought Eddie Murphy. Oh.
How you doing? How are you? Because I had seen those stories for like every year. This year will be the 5th year for one client and the 4th year for the other client.
That piece has been sold.
But I think I'm going to start charging differently because when I do their awards, all of their awards are different. So it depends on the theme. So they're like all different, like every year. So they're never like the same award. So I think I'm gonna cut back on that offer because each year trying to create a different concept. Sometimes the award has the same name.
Oh, I'm getting distracted.
I just don't want to spend all that kind of energy doing that. Especially for what I'm charging them because they're non-profit.
Oh, Matilda. Okay.
Hey, Matilda. Smile for the camera. What are you doing?
Oh, I should have brought Eddie.
There you go.
Or should make sure you should make sure it's a target deal that you
Estimate about 7. You know, she's still
I've got other sales from that.
It is not.
Thank you.
And this is Logo's piece.
I know.
The Wonder Woman. I think she likes Wonder Woman so much because she kind of looks like her. But a short version.
I was looking for Jennifer. I don't think that'd be funny to put just a little. Just a little. What's up? Hi. How are you doing?
I'm sorry.
A little slow after getting drunken stuff yesterday. Otherwise, thank you for being here. Well, he picked me up at my door. Really? We have wine and coffee, whichever one works to help.
Still some good stuff going on here in Jersey City.
We're going to be here all day. It's nice to come by, see the last, meet some artists, see the last of the show. So today we have 3 of our artists here. We have Jonathan Norbert. Yes, when I say it, I feel it's very like, we have Philip Robinson and Elena Gonzalez. And they'll talk a little bit. I'm going to moderate. I'm going to ask some questions, but this is really an open environment. So if you all of a sudden have this question that is really related to something we just talked about, please just ask. It's not really any rules. I just realized I didn't sale, and so we'll talk about that a little bit too. So maybe if you're interested in anything. Pet rubs are, available at all times. We're very shy over here, So I'm going to just kick off just by saying, again, these are 3 artists, so we'll go just in a row. Your name, which piece of artwork is yours, where you live currently, and maybe where you're from.
Me?
Yes, please.
So my name is Jean-Antoine Lambert. I'm Swiss, which everybody knows is famous for watches and banks.
And chocolate, which is not the Swiss chocolate. Sorry, you more than welcome to have some, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so this is my work here. It's called Desire One, and it's a piece that I improvised a lot on. I've been experiment a lot about it, and I try to, I would say a little more later. And I live in Jersey City, in downtown, the historical downtown. And I have my studio at Mana Contemporary. Maybe some might be familiar with Mana.
And there's an event on the 30th at Mana too.
Yes, there's an open house. Open house. So all studios are open, and you can step in and see what's fresh paint.
Philip Robinson, Philip A. Robinson Jr. I was born in New York, moved to Teaneck when I was 2 for a better education system, and then moved to Jersey City 5 years ago. I think it was 5 years ago. Moved here with my now fiance, who just walked in the door. Great.
She's like, thanks.
We moved here in the thoughts that I love Jersey, but still like to be close to the city, and she loved the city and hated Jersey, and we kind of fell in love with Jersey City. And never thought that we would be here for as long as we are, but really found a community that we really embraced. I think part of it was going to the Stop and Shop and seeing a guy that had on these huge bangles of wooden bracelets, and me loving wood, just stopping and talking with him, and finding out that he's a sculptor as well. And so, just starting that communication, seeing all the other artists that have been in the community. My piece is in the back here. It's a series of 7 works that I'm currently working on, surrounded about media-driven imagery and photo appropriation through cultures. Again, I'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'm really interested in the celebrity mindset within adolescents and adults, and the impact that imagery has on our youth, as well as the long-term and short-term goals versus upper-class and lower-class agendas.
Matilda likes you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lorena Gonzalez. I live here in Jersey City on Ogden, which is a couple of blocks away, not too far. I was born in Hoboken. I lived in West New York previously, which is 2 towns over. I'm Puerto Rican. That's another thing. There you go. And my piece is the one right behind him, the black and white Wonder Woman over here. My piece is very Superwoman was the theme, and that's my Superwoman right there. That's my that's my icon. That's who I always strive to be and everything. And that was the idea with that, to try to portray Superwomen, to give that comic art a feel and everything. So that's what that is. I'll talk about that later though. So it's fine.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things, because you kind of all talked about your art, but what I kind of want to go back all the way is to that moment because I think we touched upon it. You're a full-time artist as well as working for an artist. You didn't talk about anything about what you do in your day job. So is your day job, are you a full-time artist?
I'm going to say yes.
Yes.
Wake up, eat, sleep, and breathe it, but I also am an educator. I teach, but I don't call myself a teacher. If that kind of makes sense. I like
Is there
educate.
a reason for that?
Yeah, I don't like the connotation around teachers. It seems like, oh, well, you couldn't do anything else, so you decided to teach, and that's not how I see it. I see it as a way that I can kind of bring life back into my own work, especially when you start getting frustrated with some of the outside circumstances within the public, but also getting to see the impact that you can have on children, and seeing the work that they're doing and being able to introduce to them materials that they wouldn't necessarily have been able to get in other places. So, working with them and then being able to come home with that same energy that they have learning about the work, and then being able to work on your own stuff versus going into work being so fed up and frustrated with so many things, and then coming home and not having the energy because you're already beat down with so many things going on. So I teach at Grace Church School in the city. It's an independent school. And then I also teach at the National Academy on 89th and 5th.
Now, do you teach art?
I do. I do teach art. I should say I educate.
Educate art, yes, I'm sorry. I also know that you educate sports as well.
Yes, I am also a soccer coach and track and field coach. So I have a busy schedule. But it's fun. I come home and I'm tired. I also do CrossFit now, because I feel like I'm getting to.
And never mind planning the wedding piece. We won't even.
That's another story. But it's different in the sense that yes, you have a lot going on, but you're energized. You wake up in the sense that you want to get stuff accomplished, you want to get stuff done, and you know not to waste the day. Especially when you come to the realization that life is as short as it is. So you really want to spend the most of your time doing what you can within the time you have.
Now, did you? We'll start with Lillian on the side. Did you have a moment where it was like pivotal of you need to do art, or was it a progression in your life and all of a sudden you were like, I do this and I take the photos or did you have that moment where you're like, oh my gosh, this is something I need to, because I know you're creative in your everyday job as well.
Yes, I don't think that there was actually like a specific moment, because I remember as a kid that it was just one of those, I was always doodling or tracing or like drawing something there. And that was just something that I picked up on my own there. Like, you color as a kid and everything, and then all of a sudden you start doodling something, and then you get caught and transfixed in it and everything. That became my sort of, my release in my free time and everything, that I would be at home, I'd start, drawing something. I had sketchbooks and all that, and I think it really, I guess, where I started actually, doing, paintings like that, it really took off when I actually was working on my job there.
Oh, okay.
I work at a scenery company in Jersey City here. I'm a scenic painter, and I paint props and sets for Broadway shows, off-Broadway, all that type of stuff. And it was one of those that when I started working there, my mind was kind of blown, because I was like, I have access to absolutely everything. So that was something that I think really prompted me even more so to start painting my own pieces there, because I was at my home with my mom and everything, and we couldn't afford to put a lot of stuff here or there. I can't really do a studio and everything like that. My studio was my bedroom at the time. So working there really gave me the opportunity to expand and branch out and start doing new things and drawing and painting and photography and all that type of stuff there. So that's when that happened.
Jonathan, how about yourself? When you were a child, did you take a lot of art classes? Did you have a moment where you decided, I'm going to be an artist when I grow up, or was it kind of a transition and here you are working at the Manna?
Yeah, maybe all of that, every kid love to do, be creative. But I went to medical school and I graduated, and I worked 1.5 years as an assistant, and I was very frustrated and not happy, having to be able to be perfect all the time, because as a physician, it's all about perfection.
Okay. Were you in Switzerland at this point? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you were. Did I understand correctly? You were studying to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, were you already in school to be a doctor, or you had graduated from university and then decided to
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I graduated, and while I was working as a physician, I became so like frustrated to be like on a rail and not allowed to go a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left. Like that's what's your life gonna be, and it was not what I wanted.
And you didn't do any? Did you create outside, or because I imagine you're as studying to be a physician, that takes up most of your time.
Yes.
Did you paint during that period?
No, I started sculpting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did. I started to do clay class and portrait, and while I was doing this portrait, like I had so much fun. I said I want to do that because I really like feel it's happening in front of me, and like I have the impression that something come out of me, and I'm done for that. Like I feel for once like that's my.
You got that connection
Yes.
to what?
Yeah.
It's very tactile, and you're
Immediate, like I could realize my thought, and it was happening in front of me, and I feel comfortable. I was searching for my place on earth, and like, or kind of, what was my real call,
Right.
and that was in this action of creating something in front of me, and I had so much fun doing that.
So then the next day you walked in and you were like, I'm out of here. This whole doctor thing.
In my mind, yeah.
Can I just take those credits and apply it to the art classes? Is that what you said? Chemistry, painting.
In US, you're so lucky about the education system and to have this credit system to be able to apply to other fields. And in Switzerland, there is nothing like that. Colleges where you can study art. It's not happening. It's at the level of BFA. There is no degrees for art, and bachelors.
Did you then switch to art school? So have you actually taken official art classes, whether it's equivalent to a bachelor's or a master's, or you just learned to paint all this?
I searched for a school that would satisfy me, and I found a school that was in Italy, in Florence, in Tuscany, and decided to pursue that. And I've been 5 years in Italy to study art, like really all master techniques, like to draw from the model, and I could bring my anatomy, like understanding, to the body.
So you did have that tie a little bit. So interesting, very interesting. How about yourself, Phil? Did you have that moment, or that you thought, are you always having the burning desire to create?
That's a good question. I get that question a lot. And so for me, when I start thinking about my own education, I always like working with my hands. So like when we're creating shoebox dioramas, I really got into those.
What was your favorite one that you created?
I did a really good one that I don't think's been duplicated. So I took a box, right, and I cut out a circle on the top and I cut out a circle on the side. I think this was in 7th grade. And on the inside, I did like a war scene from, I forgot from what book, but I had like all these pieces around on the inside, and then I put like cellophane paper on the top and the side, so you could only see the image from the top and the side. And the way that you look, you could see like the whole war taking place, which is pretty cool. And I think about it now, I hadn't thought about that in a while.
Do you have it still?
No, I don't have I don't have any of the stuff.
I could see you seeing it in your when you were describing
Yeah,
it. Like
yeah.
I could see it. I was like, oh, I wonder if I saw
But
that.
I think that's how it's always been for me. Like I've always been very. If I can see it, I can produce it, and I think that's always how it's been. I was an okay drawer. I wasn't as good as I would have liked to have been, and I've gotten better over the years with more and more of my own discipline. But if I can visualize it, then I can reproduce it with my hands. And so I think when I saw that I was pretty good at that, and I could get good grades for producing artwork to like satisfy the requirements. So like English class, I'm making a ceramic hand with a paintbrush coming out for like one of the poetry sessions. I just continued to do that, again, to satisfy the need. And then my mother really saw that I had a lot more talent. She used to take me to all the museums and things, and then she would just put me into all these programs, summer school programs and other things. So to her testament, it was really more on her behalf to really push, that talent.
So you had the superwoman behind you saying,
Yes.
I see that.
more than I knew. She was a very well-educated woman. She taught at Sarah Lawrence College for a number of years. She passed in 2006 from cancer. But before she passed, she had worked a lot with women in prison, and she did sociology and crime and deviance at Sarah Lawrence, and she also was one of the deans before she passed. So she liked working with adolescents, liked working with kids, as well as seeing the potential in individuals that they don't necessarily see within themselves. So I was very fortunate, very fortunate.
I remember growing up, because I don't know if you know, but I'm an artist as well, aside from, so I always tell the story of when I was probably 5 years old and my nanny bought me, and again, when you're 5 years old, I'm not that tall right now, but I'm like, when you're 5, but I was like, she bought me what was a life-size coloring book, which was it was big, but it was, in my head, it was like taller than me. And the Crayola crayon, 64 Crayola crayon with a sharpener in the back, and for me, that was just the most amazing thing. So I always loved to do the coloring, and my mom would take me to different classes. And I remember probably like 8 or 10 years ago, I was struggling with some things, and part of what I like to do was just run. And so I would just run to get all the energy out, all these different things. And I was always trying to like beat the last score, and she was always like, my little artist has never given up hope that one day she might be an athlete. And I was like, she's like, but you're an artist, and she like in the whole, like, she couldn't believe that I couldn't see that kind of thing. And I remember having pause over it. I was like, oh. And I think I went back into like my artist phase of creation, so there's a lot when you have someone behind you to giving you that, just like you said, Pat, showing that potential that you may not see. It's always good to give that little, like, it's there, and it's really, then you go, oh, okay, and it helps you take that step forward. So it's truly amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was going to be a veterinarian, to be honest.
Wow, we have like two like positions on here.
It's crazy. It's crazy how their like direction goes. Yeah. I mean, I had 27 animals at one point.
What?
Oh my
Man,
God.
it was wild. It was wild.
Did you know about the 27 animals?
Not allowed. Not allowed.
They don't all fit in the apartment.
No.
That's what it is.
I know. There's also other animal lovers here. I don't know if you had like 27 at one juncture.
There was chickens.
Yeah.
There was a lot
Here
of
in
them.
Jersey
Yeah. 12 chicks and like 3 big ones. Yeah. So farmers.
Very interesting. Well, and all three of you have that in common of the creation with your hands, and that's a very much an important piece, I think, or for myself as well. But that's interesting that there's kind of that little thread among the three of you, the hand creation, and I just find that interesting. I always like to see with our artists during our talks, like what's kind of like a little bit of a thread that goes through there. Is there anything when you create? So last artist talk we had a lot of social commentary, that people really wanted to say something, and I was saying like, oh gosh, I like to paint. I don't really have too much to say other than here's my pretty flowers. But do you, I'll start with you, Jonathan, do you have, when you're creating something, is there something, and this can be a no, but is there something behind it as like you're trying to say about society overall?
Yeah, so when I do art, I try to communicate a feeling that I have inside, and most of the time is something that expanding, something about joy, about a physical sensation I have. Like, I would like everybody to be happy, and well, it's kind of simple, but that's pretty much my idea. And so the concept behind it is, yeah, I want to take people who are experimenting something that's kind of difficult, that's suffering, and to bring them from that point to something that's brighter and higher. And yeah, what this piece?
Yes, definitely, this piece.
Well, I put everything I know about painting. I started totally abstract. I took a roll to paint the wall, and I went totally abstract all over the place to create like the movement, the big gesture, the big direction of the painting, what I wanted to see. And I wanted this big swipe, this big the painting, like create movement. And well, I had a big time doing abstract draping, like Pollock painting. I explored totally like the drips from Jackson Pollock, for the expressive that it allows, like really like being gestural and like let go, like the movement, and though there is still like some of this like here, but it's been covered, like there's so many layers.
When I first, so he and I met down at Novato's gallery, and so I said, oh, we're having this Superwoman show as a theme, so send me something. And when he sent me this, so it's I'm glad you brought up the joy factor, because I actually didn't know that, but I couldn't stop looking, couldn't stop staring at just the sheer joy from her face of whether it is she's made this decision to either go forward, let something go, whatever it was that I can't get away from. Just that's the expression. I feel that joy, like right here in my heart, like just the explosion of happiness. And so whether she's released something, I don't know, but I just really, really connected to that joy. And if some people know, like I've been doing a couple of things with my job, and so I knew that I've had some decisions coming up, so I was like, one day I want to feel this. I just openly want to feel this. That's exactly, like, you articulated that. So you really accomplished your goal for me as, you know, as just a viewer of one, and the energy surrounding it. And I'm going to ask you this now, because every single person, I was telling you, every single person asks me about the shark. Because they'll look at it, she's like, oh, she's so happy, she's spurning him, you know, and then they go, I get the apple, and then they see the dancers, and they get the energy, and they're like, but then there's the shark. And I was like, I'm just going to ask that, because I don't, where the shark fits into all of this, or you just hanging out? It's just coming through.
Well, it's a beautiful animal for sure. Like it's a beast, and like all beasts are this total virgin aspect of it, like snakes and dangerous animal. Like they have perfection in it, and I think that's beautiful. But it's not the idea. The idea was more that, well, enjoy the moment when like joy is there. Like just take it and live it, because it's not
the shark could be eating the apple.
Yeah,
and
pretty much. It get like
it's gonna bite you in the end.
Yeah, you know, like life is goes so fast, and then you better enjoy it. And
Amen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I really connected to that. So I'm glad. He also, by the way, walked this from the Mana here. So, by the way,
Oh my God.
1.7 miles. And he kept going, it's a little windy. We're going to try tomorrow. I was like, I have to find a truck for you to get it. But he came in and it fit right through the door and we got it up. So I was extremely happy. So thank you.
A painting to go in the street with a painting this size is more like being with a big kite or like.
Yes.
I could imagine.
Well, even that day when we walked around the corner to take the photos, I'm helping him, and I was like, we're blowing away. I was like, how did you walk with this by yourself? Almost 2 miles. So we definitely appreciated that. Absolutely. Moving on to Phil. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I would just add a little something about the shark because it's also a symbol for aggressivity, but it's like I know. Woman would ask like, what? Like, is it aggressivity against women or? And I think no. It's more like getting like you need a vector to go towards your goal and to initiate the movement to achieve your desires and create movement. Like you need aggressivity at some point, like to get the thing to kick the
keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So with Philip's work, actually I'm going to take a step back. Does anybody have any questions for Jean-Antoine in regards to his painting at all?
This really resonates with me, by the way. Like, I'm her right now.
Yeah.
So am I.
I'm like her right now.
It's just that you can feel it, or I feel it right here looking at her, like this energy and joy. Like
Well, I'm in a transition period right now, so it just happened. So it's like.
See, me too a little bit. That's maybe why we
I
are
know
very.
about this too. Like I get it.
Facing your
It
fears.
resonates with me.
Yeah.
I see facing my fears. You know, it's
Yes,
like with my
exactly.
transition, that was the biggest
Yes,
thing
yes,
to
you
face
went
my
through your
fears. Look how happy she is with
Yeah.
a shark in front of her.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to do that to follow your dreams.
And just overcoming. No,
Thank
definitely,
you. Yeah.
definitely.
This is really fresh right now. That's why I saw it. I was like, wow, it's really fresh.
Thank you for
That's
sharing.
interesting because when I take a look at this, now knowing what the shark is, what I see in all of that beauty, I see death lurking around the corner.
That's very Jerome.
and what that symbolizes is that, there's, we think that we have so much time as human beings and you don't realize how very little time you actually have. And it's not until someone gets sick, like maybe a friend gets sick, and you always hear, I wish, I would have done X, Y, Z, or I feel really bad about this person being sick. So when I take a look at that, I see all the joy, but I also see you never know when your number's up. So you have to live, you really have to be in the moment of your life because it's so fleeting and it can just end. And most of us spend our time just going through the motions about life and not really engaging. And we think that it's all so important, like our jobs and making money. I mean, all of that stuff is important, but it's not important. The most important thing is yours just finds a way to support you and what you want to do. So all of the people who are they go to a job every day that they absolutely hate, and then after a while it's like 30 years have passed and you're still in the same job that you hate, and you wake up one day and it's all over. No one on their deathbed has ever said, "I wish I would have worked more." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of now that I kind of see the shark circling around, it's death is circling around us all the time. And you just never know. So, why not be happy in the moment?
Yeah.
So.
You weren't even going to stay.
There's a reason for everything.
I would say, anything else? Anybody want to follow that? No, it's
Amen.
cool. Thank you.
Also, I have one other question, because a lot of artists, when they start off painting, they kind of like, start off because it's something that, they just have to do, and, they feel really passionate about it. And then, there's this, some move into creating artwork for a market, if you will. So I want to know, any of you can actually take this question. Are you creating the work because you enjoy creating the work, or are you creating the work to cater to a market?
I don't think I'm catering to a market at all. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just jumping right in. I think it's one of those that like, I do all sorts of like different types of art and everything, like photography and like paintings and everything like that. And it's something that it's almost like therapeutic for me. It's something that it's a release for me to be able to get out there and everything. It just so happens that it's like sort of comic related and everything. So yes, in a way, like people would look at it and yeah, it looks like it can totally be marketed into that sort of market there. But for me, it's one of those that this is something that I take enjoyment out of. This is something that I'm able to truly express myself, like with my photography and everything. I always tell people, I'm like, with photography that I take, it's a journey through my life. You're seeing through my eyes right now. This is my image. You're taking that moment just like I took it for that first time and everything. And that's the same thing with like the painting there, that, it's stuff that I feel that it really represents me, and I want to try to put it out there so other people can see it and understand and get some inspiration out of it too.
It was funny, just because you have the Wonder Woman. Yesterday, two women came in and they were talking to me about art and partnerships, and they saw your piece and they were like, and it was this Wonder Woman, and I said yes. And so they said, I think they said like our boss or our manager or someone who manages, she's Wonder Woman, she loves symbols, she has Wonder Woman everywhere, it was just her birthday, and then they turned it, and the name is, I don't recall the exact name of the person, but they were like, Sister Mary Catherine, and I was like, Sister Mary Catherine, all over her. Wow. So I was like, so it really struck me, yes, because I was like, wow. So like it was really, really interesting. I kept going. I was like, she'll be, artists will be here tomorrow. I don't know why I talk to her more, but yeah. So it was really interesting of when you have that connection, and it can be just anyone makes that connection to, but you don't typically think of a sister having Wonder Woman all over her office.
And that's kind of that whole idea with like, it's an image that people recognize and everything. And you're talking, and exactly what you were talking about, that you want the art to express joy and, happiness, and, take people out of those moods of, whatever they may be feeling, whatever they may be going through at that time. And, that right there, like, like for me, that's what I paint. And I paint like those images of like powerful people, like, Wonder Woman, she's an icon to me. She's a character I grew up with. And this is somebody that, like, I'm trying to express that and everything. And you get that with the happiness and all sorts of aspects there. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do either one of you have a input from Jerome's question at all?
Oh. Well, about my art, I really want to bring meaning in what I'm doing. So I'm having fun doing it. I could not just do
something for to sell or just to.
Yeah.
Well, do you ever do a commission where somebody asks?
Well, the commission, the portrait commission is something that's well, but I always try to seize what's what the soul. I can try to what really is the person about. So, well, portrait commission is commission.
But you're not changing your style to fit something else. So you're not changing this painting or what you do with the joy to fit something on like a marketplace.
No. I won't do that.
No. How about yourself?
I think it's something that personally I've struggled with, is being able to separate the business aspect of it to the pure love of being able to create. For myself, I have to make these pieces. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's something like if I go to sleep, I have these images and these ideas, and I have to produce them. I tell people all the time, like if I was a singer, I would sing. If I was if I could, do other things, I'd do them. I just happen to be good with my hands, and I chose the medium of wood and metal. And so the medium has helped me, just we talk about being therapeutic, being able to express myself through the medium. If I do not work, and I'm sure this is for a lot of us, like if you stop doing what you love to do and what you're really supposed to do, mentally and physically, I feel it. So if I go a couple of weeks without producing anything, I can feel it in my body. I'm low down in energy. I'm angry. I'm upset. I don't feel like eating the right things. And then when you go back to the work, things start to get better. But it's taken me a long time to understand the correlation between the two.
Right.
And so for me, I have to produce these pieces. It just so happens that because I'm working with a lot of media-driven imagery, there's a market for the stuff that I'm putting out.
Right.
And so now it's, okay, how can I brand myself to help subsidize my lifestyle so I can enjoy my time here doing what I love to do in kind of a roundabout way, right? So when I'm teaching and educating, that's a means to an end. Yes, I love to teach. Yes, I love working with kids, but that's job number 2, right? Job number 1 is my work. And again, that's taken a long time to understand, because even when you're exhausted and tired, you have to understand that that's not your job. Your job is to produce the work.
Right.
So you need to designate a certain amount of time each day to the work. Otherwise, you're going to be cursing people out in the streets.
And I also feel, back to my question on the social, you also have something to say as well. And one of the things that, first of all, I said to Philip, I said, I love what you're doing, your series, and if you could create something for our show that fits into the series, that would be amazing, and I would be really appreciative. And he brought this, and I was so caught up into, okay, I have to hang, I have to get this, I have to that. And he brought it over and carefully placed it, and I wasn't actually looking here. I just kind of saw that there was something there, but I wasn't realizing that there were words. And then Philip asked me, he said, here's the write-up that goes with this piece, and I'm going to ask him to read it. And it really talks about this, and it wasn't until I put it up and attention to detail, Kristen, these words are actually imprinted on her face. And so I felt like you have also something in that social arena to say, which probably makes it even more important for you to get that out there. And this is just my consideration. Would you like to read and then tell us a little bit?
Sure. I probably should have this memorized. I don't.
That's okay.
Can everyone hear?
Yeah.
I have a microphone. We could just
Done.
sit in.
How many of your ancestors forged, walked past, stepped on, repurposed this wood? This wood. Who will tell their story? How many conversations have I lost? Are they talking to me still? This sculpture was shown to my 4-year-old niece. The hair looks like mine, she replied. Years from now, will she remember her heritage? Will her children? Will she be embarrassed by her mixed features? Will she be fixated on society's view of beauty, or will she find love in her, in you, in us, in we? A whisper in the air. You come from kings and queens. You come from a place of anger, a place of love, of rape, of genocide, untold riches, weathered hands, soft eyes, a beautiful mind. All to be here in this moment. I see you, I am with you always.
Thank you for reading that. And it really gave me a chance to really, even as much as I loved the work in and of itself, really dove into this meaning and an experience of a young child just in general. And I really just thought it was so beautiful, the consideration and what you thought about. And of course, I don't know everything, but just really how it all came together. And it became that much more powerful to me when I took that minute to realize these are words and this is the word. Oh, and I remember saying to you, and I was like, oh, I just needed more caffeine. But it was just so beautiful and so powerful. And I feel like there's a lot of social things that people are talking about and saying. And it was just struck me very, just to the core, and I just really appreciated the work that much more from that. And do you find that with all your pieces you feel that way, or was it something about this particular piece when you were thinking about it and creating it and bringing the words together?
All of the works are really centered around my own heritage and my upbringing, my friends, my family, all of the kind of cogs that have helped to bring me to this moment now. And so the series of works that I'm working on now are centered around music, culture, heritage, identity, race, sex, and the understanding of the power that media-driven imagery has on not only our youth, but our society as a whole. And so when we are visualizing these music videos, or we're listening to music, and we're taking what the media is giving us, a lot of it is negative. Some of it is positive, but you got to weed through a lot of that stuff to get to what you want. And so I'm interested in some of those long-term effects that's having, not only on the youth that's coming up, but that has had on myself.
Are you specifically talking about the negative imagery when it comes to Black youth, or just youth in general?
I'm talking about youth in general.
Okay.
And that's a good kind of counterpoint to that, is that people see me as being Black. I see myself as being an educator and an artist. I identify with being Black, but if somebody asks me my heritage, I give them my 4 quarters, which is Trinidadian, Cherokee, African American, and German. And so, in growing up in the 90s as a African American boy in a single parent home who really didn't know his father at the time, knew him but he wasn't really around, that liked to play soccer, that was a huge issue for me growing up in that way. My hair was really, really curly. I was picked on a lot. I was teased a lot. And so a lot of the understanding of where I am now, and understanding how hard it was growing up, is now embodying a lot of the work that I'm doing with these series of faces. So all of these works, and there's about 7 of them, are all faces of celebrities, and they're distorted so that you can't recognize who they are with your known reference, or who you may have seen in your lifetime, or who you've dealt with, or your heroes or heroines. You'll interpret the figure to be who you envision it to be.
Who's this?
You tell me, who is that?
I don't know. I'm not into like celebrity culture, so I don't know.
If I had not told you it was a celebrity, who would it look like?
I don't know. It could be an African mask or something like that. To me, I see obviously a lot of African features in that. So I mean, it's a non-descriptional face to me. It could be, you know, mostly anyone for me.
And I'm glad you said that also, because I was having a conversation with my neighbor who was going back to what you said also about branding and being able to market yourself in those areas. And he was saying, you know, I think you should go up to Harlem where they've got a lot of collectors and you've got a lot of African features in them. I didn't say this to him, but I'll say it to you guys now. Is that I don't just use African American celebrities, right? And so a lot of the imagery that you see are either white celebrities, Caucasians, Asians, but they're all distorted. And so essentially what you're viewing is not necessarily what you're seeing because of the wood aspect. And so some of the people that I use are of all races and of all genders.
Britney Spears.
Is that who it is?
Is that it?
No.
That's who she sees.
When you said that.
Well, you always view art from your own experiences, in your own perspective. So, you know, people can see like a number of things. You know, I just happen to see an African image on you, mostly because of the necklaces is kind of like what you can see. You know, rings of metal around, some African tribe. Like, you know, one of them may have like the rings that go down their neck. So,
yeah.
You know, again, you view it from your own experiences.
The other kind of switch in my thinking as well, and in part with the writing, is the wood that I use, I take from the area which I've been living in. And so some of the wood is from Teaneck, New Jersey, where I grew up in. Some of the wood is from upstate, where I used to go visit with my aunts and family. Mm-hmm. And I woke up one morning and just realized that the same wood that I'm taking and I'm using would have been the same wood that my ancestors had used or had been around. And when you start to date them, you can date them through the rings in the wood, you understand that this wood is like 100 years old, 150 years old. And so when I'm now using this wood, I was thinking directly towards my Cherokee heritage of not only making a statement, but having that, putting on that war paint in a sense. And sometimes when you need to try to get things accomplished, and that's why when you see that writing from far, it looks like that tribal war paint. But up close you see it's more in the writing. Same thing with the necklace and the garb, just being from that time period and that point. And then the other thing before I move on is just with the dating of the wood, you then come to the understanding that it's all in conversation, right? And so if the wood would have been there with where my ancestors were there, and they were using it for tools or for their homes or for kindling or whatever what have you, for trade being of wealth, the idea of cherry and walnut being exotic woods, which have been hard to come by, and selling them because the hardwoods are more substantial, then what does that say for my niece who then sees that and says that that's a representation of me, right? And what does that say to my students who come see the work to say that that looks like somebody like me, and they're in a predominantly white, either liberal arts school or independent school. So I'm constantly trying to have that conversation within myself about, I'm making this work, but I think I'm making this work through the imagery that's in my subconscious, right? But the other stuff that I'm thinking about, which is this ball of like anger, of energy, of oppression, of understanding, of love, like put onto the piece.
Were you, if we talk a little bit about influences, is there someone who works in this genre that you are influenced by, or you, through all the things you just described, said, I think wood is the best material for me to create what I'm looking to create? Do you look at someone and say, I'm definitely intrigued by how they've treated the wood, I'm going to do that to create this? Or are you just it's wood, given we're talking about the length of time that the trees are.
You're talking specifically about other artists that may be looking towards?
It's kind of like, you know, did someone did you look at another artist and were influenced by them to do this? And if so, I guess, was it the wood that they used, or was it something else about that?
I went to Skidmore College, so I had a ceramics background, because Skidmore is known for the ceramics program. And I got so far, but these two guys were making these huge vats of these pots on this wheel, and I couldn't do it. And so I got really frustrated, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to metal. And I was able to make these large pieces out of metal. I don't have a foundry anymore, so I graduated more towards what I could use. And I used to use a plasma cutter to do a lot of my metal work. I didn't have the ventilation, so I couldn't use that anymore. So I had to find a medium where I could still create what I wanted within the confines of the materials and tools that I had. And so wood was the next aspect of that. I was not taught woodworking, so I had to trial and error, learn about how to manipulate the material and the medium to my benefit. A lot of the artists that I looked at to try and learn about what materials to use, what tools to use, were like Instagram, like tool workers or woodworkers that do slabs, and how do they get the wood to feel like glass, and what polyurethanes, oils they're using to blend in what they want. But I think this is always the case that you see one of the final pieces that's I'm still working on essentially up here, right? But you don't see the 12 to 15 other pieces that are in my studio in Jersey City and my studio in the Bronx that took me to get to this point, which also goes back to a couple of the other works and a couple of the other ideas about wealth. So like you have LeBron James, who coming out of high school got this huge contract by Nike, right? And all these kids now want to be basketball players because they can get all this money. That's great. That's wonderful, right? But at the same time that he came out of high school and got picked up by Nike and was making all this money for the NBA, there was a huge downward slope in the achievement gaps in high schools, right? But nobody was talking about that. And so you didn't see all of, like for the one LeBron, the thousands of kids that either got hurt or got injured or didn't make it along the way, and no one's talking about that, right? And so the same thing with this work. Like, yes, I'm able to show now I'm at this point, but all of the work that went into trying to get to this point, all the pages that I looked at to try and figure out, all right, well, what materials do I need to buy, what I need to get, like how do I make the hair the way that it looks, the way that I want it to look. And just a little side note, I had to go to Japan to get that right tool to use for that piece. So again, it's like doing your due diligence, doing your research, finding out what works. Yes, going to galleries, seeing other people's work, seeing where you might be in conversation with other artists. Derek Adams, Joshua Close, friends of mine that I know that we're in conversation with.
And then migrated to something else, and what is your predominant that you actually work in and everything?
And so with that, I jumped back into doing paintings, and I have a couple at the apartment there. I put some in a couple of different other shows too, that they were all there when I was at the shop that first year and everything. It was just cranking one out after another, and that became my sort of inspiration, my go-to to sort of do, like, jump back into it. And then that kind of got sidetracked again, because then there was like moving going on, and so I couldn't use my tools for painting. So I had to figure out a different way to release that creative aspect. And that's when the photography sort of came into play. That it was a little bit of an easier medium, and it's, to me, I say it's easy, but like you ask professional photographers, they'll tell you, like, for me though, it was a way to be able to be creative, put my own spin and artistic sort of touch on these photos that I'm trying to, get people to see. And
you explore a lot of color too, and an unusual
I
color.
do, yes.
That's what always attracted me to your.
So I guess you could say like a piece that or something like that inspired me. What inspired me there, I remember as a child there was a painting in our apartment, and it was just hanging right in like the living room and everything, and it was just really nice. It was a colorful piece. It was just strokes of just rainbow colors and everything all over the place. It was Devil Playing the Rainbow Keys by William de Kooning. And that was a piece that I remember sitting there for hours. Like I would just stare at it because it was just colors everywhere, and I didn't understand it at the time.
Yeah.
And then as I kept getting older, it just caught me. So that was definitely a big one that inspired me, and I always wanted to after that to be able to show color, to be able to demonstrate that in like the photos, because that was something that it made me happy to look at. It made me feel good. Yeah, it made me feel good to do all that, and that's what inspired me to keep doing that with my photos and the paintings, and all that there.
And John, I was wondering, did you have kind of that experience you talked about, the sculpture and then moving on? Did you have, aside from we talked a little bit about the Jackson Pollock that's here, was he one of your influences, or is there someone else who has influenced your work?
Yeah, definitely is Velázquez, Diego Velázquez, the Spanish painter. He was portraitor for King Philip IV of Spain, and he's been kind of role model for me because of his brushstroke style, his impastos, like getting thick and kind of creating features like on dress of the woman of the court. Like just is a lot of people would say a lot of sauce, but can kind of like throwing the paint like really boldly and quickly, and I admire that because you have to not, you can be shy. You have to like it's the instant that sees.
You're committed.
And you see the gesture and well it's brush strokes, and I love that. But at the same time he's also spot on when he's doing portraiture. Like the features of the portrait is when he's doing Innocent X, the Pope. It's a masterpiece, one of the best portraits ever made, and he's just right. So,
do you work in other mediums aside from, I know you do the portraits, but besides the oils, do you go back to the sculpture at all ever?
Yeah.
Oh, do you still do that today?
Yeah. At the moment, I work from a piece from Incarnation. It's a baby, and it's a self-portrait. Yes,
I know what you're.
And it's very exciting for me because I'm casting it in bronze, not myself, but I'm doing that at Mana Foundry, and it's my first bronze, and I never imagined that when you start, well, actually when you finish the sculpture, it's only half of the job. It's when you start doing the bronze and the casting is another adventure, and you have all the different cast molds you have to do, and actually at the foundry at Mana they've been really super nice, teaching me all this process, and I discovered like something that I experienced a lot when I started doing art is this collaboration around a project and interacting with a human being doing an art project. And well, it might be conflicted, or there might be some struggle, personality stuff, but most of the time I enjoy that. I enjoy working with a professional that who knows what he's talking about his craft, about his technique, and there's a communion around a project, and I love that. And it's happening for me with this project at Mana, with the foundry and the casting of the bronze. Yes, something I never expected to live, like being in a relationship with a human being about doing something that both of us love to do,
and that is really interesting, because I'll say I've never had to do an art project with another person. It's usually myself, and I'll tell you my niece, we went away on a family vacation, and I think she's artistically inclined. I think she's like me, that she wishes she could be like an amazing soccer player, all these different things. So we were talking, she had to work on an art project, and she was talking about what she had to do, put together, and things along that line. And when you're younger, you have these other experiences, which I was trying to say, it's like life, when you're working in the office, there's always someone who doesn't pull their weight. And so she and her one friend did most of the work, and then another person didn't, but it turned out that's not how the teacher kind of heard it, some of these things were, so she almost had the inverse. So she was like, I never want to work on an art project with someone else again. So it's really great to hear when you're learning, people are all passionate about the same thing, and creating things come to fruition, because there are plenty of artists that do work together and do create something. And it's something we talk a lot about here too, is just the partnerships, because that you learn, you strengthen, you grow, and you're able to make something bigger, because everybody has different ideas coming together, and it becomes something entirely different, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. So that's amazing. I'm going to ask a question, and then we'll go into the audience here, because I know we also have some people who joined us who they were definitely coming on, and so we might want an autograph of some. So we are about, obviously, art. Whenever I post that we're open, I tell you guys what we're playing, like music-wise, because Matt and I are huge music people, and so I wondered if you had any music that you like to listen to when you create. I'll start with you.
Oh. Well,
and there's no judgment, so if you all of a sudden say, like, I listen to Kenny Rogers, or, no judgment. I grew up on some Kenny Rogers, yes.
Well, about I would go the opposite direction, and oftentimes when I go into figuration and portrait, I love silence. It helped me, or to listen to speeches, like the voice helped me to connect with my left brain, and to be more in calculating and measurements and stuff. But otherwise, when I don't need to be accurate, like salsa music is something that
salsa music.
Yeah, dancing, because of the dance movement.
Yeah.
Do you use salsa?
I learned it.
We have all this area if you want to show us. That's a little bit of a runway. If you want to do a little salsa.
All right. Yeah. Not this time.
Well, that's fun. That's fun. Do you have some music you like to listen to?
I listen to all sorts. Pink Floyd, that's definitely.
I was
a
so
big one.
pleased that you watched it because I would never have thought. I was like, oh my gosh,
I'm a big Floyd fan. Honestly, I vary between what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a lover of all sorts of music and everything. So like it could be one day it could be Pink Floyd. One day I could be in the mood and like, okay, put Prince on.
Mm-hmm.
And like, or I'll just come up with like, you know, I make my own random playlists and everything of songs throughout like an entire year that have sort of inspired me or talked to me, and that sometimes that's like what I truly listen to there. But I vary between all sorts of things. So.
You know, when you go out and you take your photographs, and if you're walking around with like that kind of specific, I'm going to take photographs today, do you have like your earphones in, or do you listen to what's around you?
I have my headphones in. Sometimes I just have them in, but nothing playing.
I'm totally the same way.
So that way I'm kind of like in my own zone there. And when it comes to photographs, though, I do actually kind of like just walking around and listening to the environment. Because it's more of one of those, like, you know, the silence of an area, or like sometimes you hear like, you know, maybe kids laughing over here or something sort of catches your eye just listening to what's around you there. And for like taking photographs, I like to just be out in the actual
present.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
I'm the same way, that I need silence when I'm really working hard on something, and I need to, like, if I really need to like figure out how I'm going to produce it, then I need silence to really think about it. But if I like need to get going, I'm in the mood, I'll crank the volume all the way up. Like my housemates know, like when I'm about to start working in the studio, the music goes all the way up.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, say something.
I'm a huge R&B junkie.
Nice.
So like I know like a couple weeks ago, I just had to listen to the Mac album, the old Mac album, because there's so many samples from that album, from like Usher to Outkast.
Did you know there's a vinyl record store around the corner?
I did. I had a ton of vinyl that I gave away for garage sales and things, which looking back on it, we should not have done. But actually, you know, it's funny you say that, because music is such a big role in my production aspect that I went to an exhibition at the El Museo del Barrio gallery in the city, and one of the artists there had I forgot the name of the artist. He had like b-boys that were in there doing dance while he was working, and had music happening while he was painting these figures, right? So something clicked on me that I was like, well, if you like music so much, why don't you have one of your friends come over and DJ while you're producing? So I'm like in the middle of talking with a friend of mine who's a producer about him coming over to like start just mixing up music.
Nice.
Like him creating while I'm creating, to like have
That's
that
really,
dynamic going on.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But I definitely need to have something. Like I won't even listen to albums, because I want to hear that creativity while I'm trying to create. So like the new Kendrick Lamar album that came out that everyone's raving about, like I'll listen to a couple of things, but I won't really sit down and listen to it until I have time to sit in my studio, and then I can turn it on and listen to what he's creating while I'm trying to create something new as well. So like I'm always looking for like new stuff when on Spotify, like new releases I'm all on, or like new music that's coming out, or like this one artist that, you know, not a lot of people know about. Her name is Her, H.E.R. It's this new idea of like not to tell people who the artist is, but give them like a silhouette and like a name, and give them this music. But the music is like phenomenal. But everyone wants to know who she is, so like I'm listening to a lot of her stuff. The internet is really good, a lot of that stuff. But I like salsa, reggae, bachata.
I was on a salsa kick at work the other day,
right?
so it's okay.
Like soca, sometimes you just want to dance while you're doing stuff, reggae, some old like Green Day. I'm all on board with that stuff.
I have like days of the week that sometimes like it used to be like if it was Sunday and I was doing something, I like classical music, and so I needed to have classical, so I was on like a Vivaldi kick, like all of these things, like, but so I don't know why Sunday I'm always like, I don't want to hear really lot of music on Sunday. I don't know. So you also kind of like, it's what your gut too is feeling. But I realized we were so far into the questions I haven't had really a chance to ask, as we're like 25 of 2. Is there any questions that the audience has of any of the artists as we're going around?
Does anybody want to drink?
Well, I was just going to say, because I was like, if not, we can kind of, because I was going to take a break, but now it's kind of on the late side, so I was going to say that if there was any other questions, I could ask one more question, we could wrap it up, you guys could drink, you guys can talk to the artist one-on-one. If you had any questions at all, we could pet Matilda. But is there anything anybody else may have?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I guess my last question before we kind of take a, again we have coffee and water up here, and there's some chocolate in the back too if anybody wants any. But I guess what is the like, I guess on a parting note of what is the thing that you want to express to our audience just about your art, in general?
Basically, it's one of those, well, like for this piece, if you can see like just a strong, dominant female who's, not going to take crap from anybody. We need a lot more of those, especially nowadays and everything. And that's why that's my character. I love her to death and everything. And honestly, if you can find some sort of joy in painting, in any one of these paintings that you look at here, then it's worth it. Then, the job is done there. That's literally what I'm looking for. If you could find happiness in it, you could find some sort of message, some sort of positivity, then goal is complete.
I would say not to, or be cautious of some of the assumptions you make towards other individuals and other people. Through clothing, music, speech. I think, we're all guilty of either one way or another, either looking down on others or making assumptions towards individuals that we may not know, or know their struggle, or know what they've been through or gone through. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of my work tries to talk about how universal certain things are, like how universal clothing is, for example. So the hoodie sweater, to me, is a universal piece of clothing. You could have a lawyer on Wall Street wearing a hoodie sweater. You could have somebody on the street wearing a hoodie sweater. But you may not know what put them on the street, right? You don't know the hardships that person on Wall Street may be going through. And so just not to make those assumptions through those ideas. And then also, not just through clothing, but then, the landscape or the geographical area in which you're situated in. Like, we love Jersey City, right? And we love what's happening here, but let's also talk about how a lot of people that have lived there for years can no longer afford to live here, mm-hmm. and have to be pushed out. And so what does that say? Like the people that you may see in the park, that have been there for years, like, do you see them as the new Jersey City, or you see them as the old Jersey City? And I think that's really important for us to have that conversation with as well, and to talk with those people, because in the end, this is our community. This is all of us. We shop at the same centers. We go to the same pubs. We take the same bus.
Jonathan?
Well, I said quite a bit earlier about uplifting and getting outwards and this kind of feeling that are expanding and seize the moment of being happy and ride it like a wave. Hopefully it lasts like forever, but maybe not. So
Enjoy the time that we're here and,
Yeah.
and what you're doing, and all the joy it
yeah,
brings.
clock is ticking. Like,
Before the shark eats you.
the shark is around. And yeah, it's yeah, life is precious, and it should be protected and nourished, and I believe that in taking care of ourselves physically, we can access a physical joy, like a well-being, like a sensation in your body. You feel so good, and you want everyone to be and to experience that, and to be hopeful, like that is like pulling future, something that's ahead of us, and you want to reach, and yeah, I believe that when you feel that good, you can connect to something that's about the higher self, and well, it's easy to connect to other people in that vibration, in that consciousness, and well, I guess it's going in the direction of like being part of a community and being part of humanity, and everybody is equal, and you can connect through that heart, that self thing. So much easier in that consciousness, and not being like bumping all the time in people.
Yeah. Definitely working together and experiencing joy and building our community. And speaking of community, I really am grateful for the community of you who came out today, and the joy that Matilda is feeling. She's like, I feel happy. So thank you very much. It's really important to us, I think, to have these different conversations, just so, because it's just so much more about art a lot of times, and I really enjoy the time that we had here today. So if anybody has any questions of the artists, please feel to ask them, and if you have any questions about the artwork, you can ask me. I'm happy to help you out in any way possible, but there's also some coffee, water. We can also open up some wine. There's some chocolate. So thank you, everybody. And I know it's a little